Did you know April is National Car Care Month? Head to your local Big O Tires for great deals like this. Now, get a synthetic oil change starting at only $39.99, including tire rotation. Plus, get a free multi-point vehicle inspection, too. Find your nearest Big O at BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The word of the day in sports this morning is rehab. Tiger Woods announced he's going to a rehab facility outside of and Nakua did not disclose the nature of their treatment or the name and location of their rehab facility. Nakua, who led the NFL in catches last season, has been involved in several situations where his behavior was in question. A woman has filed a lawsuit against Nakua for biting her and making anti-Semitic comments. The rehab decision for Tiger comes 5 days after he was involved in a car crash near his home on Jupiter Island in Florida. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Stand up! When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect Black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, Black voices, Black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up!
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and
Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA.
Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm asking for a little latitude. Title of the op-ed by Jesse Jackson Jr., Rabbi Stephen B. Jacobs, and Rabbi Hillel Cohn reads, in the aftermath of AIPAC, a familiar refrain, let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, let my people go. The biblical demand delivered by Moses to Pharaoh is one of history's most enduring calls for liberation. It tells the story of a people enslaved, freed by a moral awakening. We reflected on the story of Exodus and the shared struggle of Black and Jewish communities after we read the article, Why I Support AIPAC, Opinion in the Chicago Tribune. For Jewish communities, the Exodus represents liberation from chattel slavery and the birth of a nation grounded in faith and freedom. For Black Americans, liberation has followed an even more complicated path. This week, our communities observe Passover and Easter. The season of liberation comes with renewed concern over the AIPAC and the impact of AIPAC spending in Black communities in the recent Democratic primaries in Illinois and around our country. With its substantial political resources and the $22 million in spending, perhaps even more, AIPAC far outdistanced other groups in outside spending in Black and underserved communities. Of particular concern, the organization took steps to hide its money in shell packs and coordinated donations via individual donors, while its candidate beneficiaries often feigned ignorance about enormous donations and expenditures. This has raised questions across our community about outsized influence and lack of transparency. This moment calls for reflection, not division. Black and Jewish communities share deep historical parallels. We know persecution, we know exclusion, we understand the importance of political organization and civic engagement, yet our histories are not identical. In America, race-based constitutional slavery, embedded in law and enforced by government, created a legacy of disparities in wealth, education, housing, healthcare, and the right to vote and to be represented. Emancipation for Black Americans did not come through a single divine decree. It came through decades of political compromise and moral struggle. The admission of one free state and one slave state at a time to maintain a fragile balance between North and South, the Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, and ultimately a civil war that claimed more than 600,000 lives. Freedom for Black Americans has been a continuous political struggle. Frederick Douglass captured that tension in his famous 1852 speech, asking, "What to the Negro slave is the 4th of July?" His question still resonates. Independence means something different to those who are excluded from its promises. Freedom required the 13th Amendment to end slavery for us, the 14th Amendment to guarantee citizenship rights still being debated before the Supreme Court just yesterday, and the 15th Amendment to protect voting rights, the Robinson versus Clay decision that we are expecting to be decided any moment now, and certainly between now and June. Even then, it required Reconstruction, followed by a century of resistance to Jim Crow. It required the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The latter is now under attack by the current administration, and in a case before the Supreme Court, it may decide by this summer with the potential to erase Black representation across the country. Black and Jewish communities in America have long shared a common bond rooted in the pursuit of justice. Our shared struggle was especially visible in Chicago. Jewish leaders and organizations played important roles in the civil rights movement, from supporting school desegregation to providing legal advocacy through civil rights organizations. Chicago neighborhoods became places where Black and Jewish communities worked together on labor rights, fair housing, and voting access. During the 1960s, Jewish activists joined Black Chicagoans in marches for open housing and confronted discrimination in neighborhoods across the city. Today, those struggles continue across Chicago's West Side, South Side, and South suburbs. In majority Black district, political primaries are forums. They are forums for communities to debate their futures, not only in Chicago, but also in Los Angeles. These debates must be grounded in the lived experiences of those still navigating the consequences of historic inequality. These are sacred debates, reflecting the unfinished work of liberation. We must recognize the differences in our struggle and our right to decide our own future. Shared struggles do not require identical paths. It requires mutual understanding and mutual respect. Chicago has long been a place where the understanding has taken place. From civil rights marches to labor movements, Black and Jewish communities have often stood side by side. The question now is how that partnership can continue in an era of polarized politics and the outside, oversized influence of AIPAC. The Exodus story reminds us that liberation is not just about leaving bondage. It's also about building a just society afterward. Inside our voting districts, inside our primaries, and inside our communities, we must be free to chart our own futures. Let my people go was the beginning of a journey, not its end. The work of liberation continues for all who believe in justice, equality, and the promise of democracy for all. This is an editorial that I had published today, along with Rabbi Stephen B. Jacobs, who has spent his career as an advocate for social change, spirituality, and civil rights. Rabbi Hillel Cohn has enormous number of honors for his work fighting hate and building and inclusion. I am Jesse Jackson Jr., a lifelong fighter for social justice and represented Illinois' 2nd Congressional District for 17 years. As we prepare to talk in this hour about primaries and we talk about Democrats voting, within the Democratic Party, there is a struggle over direction. There are 2 Exodus stories that are playing out. One that is taking place in Iran today and the Gaza Strip, and there's another with outsized spending by those same groups here in the United States determining the future of low-income African-American communities. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Carpal tunnel syndrome. Heart failure that doesn't improve with common medicines. These are some signs and symptoms associated with ATTR-CM, or the cardiomyopathy of ATTR amyloidosis, a serious heart condition with symptoms that get worse over time. Amvuttra, vutrisiran, is a prescription medicine given by a healthcare provider that treats ATTR-CM in adults to reduce heart-related death, hospital stays, and urgent visits. In a clinical study, Amvuttra was proven to help people live longer and have fewer heart-related hospital stays and urgent visits over 3 years compared to placebo. Amvuttra lowers the amount of vitamin A in your blood, which can affect vision. Other side effects include pain in the arms or legs, pain in the joints, and shortness of breath. These are not all the possible side effects of Amvuttra. For prescribing information, call 1-833-256-2748 or learn more at amvuttra.com. Ask your doctor about Amvuttra for ATTR-CM.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Well, welcome to Thought Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And of course, leading our Thought Provoking Thursdays is always the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators He is a strategic alliance consultant and the president of Party Politics US. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I think I might have just lost Atiba, or he's muted. Anyway, while we wait for Atiba to rejoin our program in just a moment, I did want to share that as we consider and share and celebrate the resurrection, the crucifixion, of course, tomorrow of Jesus of Nazareth, not quite a day that we celebrate, but the crucifixion obviously leads to resurrection on Sunday, and that we do celebrate the idea of rebirth and new life. In my editorial today in the Chicago Tribune, I talked about two Exodus stories. The Exodus story that we know in the Holy Bible, an escape from chattel slavery by divine decree, with Moses as its leader, who was intervened in a process by Almighty God, him, her, the spirit energies self, to let our people go. The African American process for emancipation from chattel slavery is quite a different journey. That journey did not come from divine decree. It required amendments to the Constitution of the United States. It required the admission of one free state and one slave state to the Union. Both of these states in these processes get 2 United States senators. They get representatives in the Congress of the United States. And yet they came into the process by way of a compromise between North and South to preserve the peculiar institution of slavery and to strike the balance between both. Various compromises made the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War necessary in order to arrive at the idea. And then first Reconstruction, poll taxes, counting jelly beans to be able to vote. Some of the more difficult aspects of our journey out of chattel slavery have defined the history of the United States. There have been more days in the United States for African Americans in unfreedom than there have been days since Brown versus the Board of Education, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, public housing legislation in 1968. There have been more days in unfreedom for African Americans than there have been days in freedom. And that's what Frederick Douglass was talking about in 1852 when he said, "What to the American slave does July 4th mean?" And now we find ourselves, even at this hour, waiting for a Supreme Court decision to determine the quality of our representation in Robinson versus Calais. Yesterday, the President of the United States, the first president in modern history, attended with the Attorney General of the United States a Supreme Court oral arguments on the birthright citizenship of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, an amendment that guaranteed citizenship rights to African Americans and added to the Constitution coming out of the American Civil War. And so our process out of slavery is very different. And when we finally get congressional districts drawn to include us in the Congress of the United States and in state legislatures around the country, to include us, Section 2 and Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, and then our allies take enormous resources in our sacred debate about our future, and they put their finger on the scale by spending millions of dollars in congressional districts to defeat candidates who are part of that sacred conversation, is indeed troubling. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I know that I didn't want to opine, but I know we had a small technical difficulty for a moment. I wanted to opine on my op-ed today in Chicago's Today's Tribune, but beyond that, I know there's so many issues regarding the midterms that are of interest to you that I do want to talk about for the balance of the hour. Hi, Atiba. I think Atiba's muted. And I'm still having a technical problem hearing Atiba, and I don't think we can hear him either. So let me continue. Atiba, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I certainly can now. Thank you. Atiba? I think Atiba's still having technical difficulties. I think he may have to come in and go out again. So I want to be clear that this moment is not a call for division. It is a call for reflection in the ways in which our coalition can work together. Atiba, I can hear you now, but Atiba cannot hear me. Okay, this is not a moment for division. It is a moment for reflection, because critical to democratic primary.
But I can't hear. But I couldn't hear him.
Critical to our primary processes and Democratic Party primary processes is that in the context of these congressional districts, we are allowed. That's why the districts are drawn the way they are drawn, so that Hispanic Americans can have an opportunity to talk about, through their communities, the issues that matter to their communities, and hopefully select a nominee in that debate who can go to Washington, D.C. and legitimately speak to the issues and concerns of their community without any fear or interference from outside forces. That's the purpose of the Voting Rights Act in the first place. Without the Voting Rights Act, of course, we rely upon Democrats and Republicans, many of whom are particularly insensitive to the needs, to the histories, and to the concerns of the least of these, of communities that have struggled for a century and for 2 centuries to get representation in the Congress of the United States and in state legislatures. So much so that while many people are concerned about the war in Iran and the economic consequences of blocking the Strait of Hormuz and what the cost of petroleum is for their cars, we find ourselves as African Americans at this hour fighting for our own representation. In fact, Jim Clyburn just recently wrote a book called The First Eight. The first 8 African Americans elected to Congress from the state of South Carolina. I believe it's moving in the general direction of a bestseller because of its historical significance and because of the historical significance of who Jim Clyburn is in Second Reconstruction as an African American leader in the Congress of the United States. That's part of our history. That's part of our story. And so when outside money weighs in these races, it becomes deeply troubling. In my own campaign, artificial intelligence weighed in heavily on my behalf. I have no idea who these people are, but they must have heard my message about building the global economy to the Black community. That's called an independent expenditure. It is illegal to coordinate a campaign with an independent expenditure. And therefore, of course, I have no interest in anything illegal. We did not coordinate our campaign with an outside interest that chose to support and advocate for my candidacy, because I argued across this campaign that African American and African American communities cannot afford to be on the outside of another economy complaining about what we don't like, what we don't know. We need to be part of that economy and welcome it to our community so we can put our people to work. That's what I believe. I believe that in my core. Every time I said no to this economy or no to that economy, I found myself fighting for one grocery store at a time. No, we need grocery stores because the economy is changing in our communities. They need to be fighting to get into our communities. We ought not be fighting trying to find them. I wanted to reverse the dynamic of that arrangement by building one 10,000-foot runway on land set aside by the FAA and the state of Illinois for more than 40 years to give us nonstop connections to Africa, nonstop connections to Europe, nonstop connections to Beijing, nonstop connection to the global economy. With that message, some international interests heard my plea and heard my campaign, and they said Jesse Jackson Jr. is open-minded, and we support his campaign. At least that's what I believe, because I don't know these people. But when people hide money and candidates act like they don't know the money is hidden in congressional races, when the American Israeli Political Action Committee, who has experienced the same pain and suffering, they know exclusion, they know discrimination that we have experienced, and they spend and outspend campaigns 12-1 on behalf of candidates. In our story and in our sacred debate, it is deeply troubling. And so, again, not a moment for division, but a moment of reflection. Why reflection? Because we too have a Passover story as Black people. Passover began Wednesday. This is the period and the part in the Holy Bible where Moses sits around with his family and his close neighbors, and all of the plagues are coming, and the prayers are prayed that God's wrath upon Egypt passes over them, that it passes over them, because God was teaching Egypt a lesson for what he had done, for what they had done to the Jewish people. That's Passover. That's what we're commemorating right now. Good Friday is actually a Jewish commemoration in Christianity of a Passover Seder. So Jesus and the disciples sat around the table reflecting upon slavery when he was breaking bread and wine and talking about ways that he wanted to be remembered. And of course, later that night, he would be arrested. Then he would be tried. And on Sunday, he would be laid to rest. But early on Monday morning, the tomb was empty. And hence, we find ourselves as Christians and part of a Judeo-Christian process. That's who we are. That's where we're from. And that's what it means to us. I know that I only have about 3 minutes to come forward. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I still can't hear Atiba.
Can you hear me?
I can for that
All
one
right,
moment.
Yeah,
Hey, Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. I heard you. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear me, and thank you so much for that. You know, and it kind of is a segue, and hopefully later we'll get a chance to talk a bit about midterms. But you talked about my cousin Frederick Douglass. You talked about Exodus. You talked about all these things or whatever that are going on, and I think that ultimately, right now, this is our moment, 250th anniversary of the United States, for us to redefine what it is to be American. And that it's our time not to ask someone to sit at the table, not ask someone, can we put this word in? Can we do this? It is time for us to redefine what it is and what it means to be an American.
And I it's almost as if you were here the whole time. Exactly. The very definition, which I might add is evolving, because no July 4th is the same at any given moment in American history. From July 4th, 1776, we know where we were as a people, as African Americans, and what the architects of the Declaration of Independence felt about Black folk. We know that. We know where they were when they founded the Constitution, when we wrote the Constitution in 1787. We know where we were. We know where we were through the pre-construction of the United States, the construction of the United States, the deconstruction of the United States, the American Civil War. We know where we were in the reconstruction of the United States, and every single one of those July 4ths is different because they took on new meaning as we got closer and closer to new rights, new opportunities, and our full participation in the society. And so I'm particularly honored that Atiba and our conversation will continue when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I can't think of a better mind at this hour who can help us exercise our own for this purpose. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 with Atiba.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Body cam footage shows the moment Tiger Woods was arrested after a crash in Florida last week.
So I This time you're under arrest for DUI. Yes, sir.
Video shows him struggling through sobriety tests, with deputies later finding painkillers in his pocket. Woods also told officers he was looking at his phone just before the rollover crash. President Trump has removed Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying she's leaving for a job in the private sector. Trump praised Bondi's work, but the move comes as she faced criticism over her handling of the Epstein files. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will now step in as acting Attorney General. And Black rapper Pooh Shiesty and his father have both been arrested in separate incidents. Reports say Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams Jr., was taken into custody in Dallas, Texas, while his father was arrested in Memphis, Tennessee, following an FBI raid tied to a federal case. Authorities have not yet announced charges. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Did you know April is National Car Care Month? Head to your local Big O Tires for great deals like this. Now, get a synthetic oil change starting at only $39.99, including tire rotation. Plus, get a free multi-point vehicle inspection, too. Find your nearest Big O at BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The behavior issues for Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua have become public knowledge at a horrible time for the 3-year veteran. Nacua is eligible for a contract extension that could have made him one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. The Rams have put those contract talks on hold. Nacua is entering a rehab facility to treat his behavior issues. He led the NFL last season with 129 catches and was second in receiving yards with 1,715. He also had 10 touchdown catches. The Rams were prepared to give Nacua an extension before the 2026 season that might have paid him between $35 and $40 million a year. Nacua is making $5.7 million in the final year of his contract. The Lakers are at Oklahoma City tonight. The Clippers are at home against San Antonio. It's HBCU night at the Intuit Dome. The Clippers are also considering a tribute to Marvin Gaye. Today would have been Marvin's 87th birthday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
An official message from Medicare. Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money. Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If a Lenovo computer for your business is on your holiday list, don't shop around. Just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com. It's your last chance to get exclusive deals on the PCs you want for your business, like the ThinkPad X9 14 Aura Edition and Yoga 7i 2-in-1. So avoid all that shopping chaos and price comparing, and just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com, where PCs are up to 35% off. That's Lenovo.com.
Lenovo. This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. and we're at Thought-Provoking Thursdays, our conversation with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. I think your mic was trying to party with that music that was up there before.
or it was your mic. Atiba, your thoughts on the primary processes and where we are.
Yeah, you know, the other day I was in the grocery store and I ran into one of my neighbors, and it was very interesting conversation because he said, Atiba, up until now, I didn't think my vote really counted. And then he sent me a video of an African-American brother talking about the fact that we too often are looking at elections and voters and candidates as if, you know, well, if I don't like them, you know, or if they're not popular enough, I don't feel like, you know, my vote really counts. But you know where it counts? In that grocery store where we were. It counts because when you go to get butter, milk, and cheese, by the time before you get the rest of the stuff, you've already spent somewhere between $20 and $30. And so it was interesting because in this video that he sent me, the guy said something that I had never thought about it in this way, but I think and hopefully that it is something that will convince others, aside from my friend neighbor, who said that now after watching that, it made him want to vote. That our vote is a business negotiation. We have to recognize that candidates are not always going to say or do or have everything that we want. We got to figure out between the two or whoever is running, which one can I work with? Which one is better able to negotiate for my best interest? Because by not voting, you are definitely voting against your interests. And it was very interesting to listen to someone, a young person, you know, talk about it from that standpoint, because this whole idea of not voting is the opposite. And if you think that your vote doesn't matter, you start asking the question, why do they do so much to try to make it harder for you to vote?
You know, I want to, and we do this every now and then, I want to challenge some of the assumptions and the hypothesis, or maybe the thesis that's raised by the young man that you bumped into in the grocery store. I think some votes in our democratic process can be negotiated and are transactional. I think, though, if you come from one of these sacred districts, the districts that are the byproduct of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the districts that are the byproduct of everything that it took, a stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, to get to where we are, that this is far more of a sacred process than it is transactional. In fact, if every election is transactional, one could argue that Republicans who engage in significant economic transactions, who, if you do this for me, quid pro quo, I'll do this for you, or I'll vote for you if you're willing to give me a tax break, that's transactional. But this idea that my children in the 8th grade or your children in the 12th grade might be able to look up and see a Black woman in Congress who's arguing for desegregated schools, Brown versus the Board of Education, or arguing for the right to vote, arguing against voter suppression and the Safety Act, arguing for the Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Program or the right to health care, because our people have earned it. It's far less transactional and far more moral from my perspective, Atiba.
Yeah, but Jesse, we got to meet people where they are. Most people don't know all the issues that are going on. The issue that they do know is I got less money in my pocket. And when I go into a grocery store, I go to get gas, or if I'm a TSA worker and I'm not getting paid and I can't afford to go to work. Can you imagine? I can't afford to go to work. So you're basically saying these people who are working, they believe that they're going to get paid, reimbursed, but right now they're not getting paid and they already don't make a lot of money. In terms of the negotiation, let me kind of go back a little bit. I'm looking for what is it's going to be that you said, Stony the road we trod. I say, lift every vote and sing. I want to be singing on November 3rd. November 3rd, I want to be joining hands with people. That's not saying that we shall overcome, but saying that we did overcome. Because right now we keep getting caught up into the whole emotional aspects of this when I think that we should be looking at the rational aspects of this. People get upset because a bill doesn't go through or get passed. We were talking about a crime bill a few years ago. We were talking about voting rights bill a few years ago. And because it didn't get passed the first time, we give up. No, that means you have to go back and figure out and strategize how you're going to get more people so that the people that are on your negotiating, the people who you believe are going to vote en masse for your issue are going to pass that issue. And it could take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We often hear about the civil rights bills that passed in 1963 and 65 and 68, but we never think about or talk much about the road that was very stony that we tried to get there. And so I think we have to do, at least on my part, I want to take more responsibility in terms of voter education, because we often talk about voter registration, not enough about voter education, and the fact that people should be looking more so at the candidates, going to their community meetings. Yes, there are so many different things that can distract us and keep us from getting involved and actively engaged. But there is a reason why more women were elected in 2018 after they felt really, really ticked off about the election that happened in 2016 and sent more women to the United States Congress than at any other point in the history of this country, 99 years after women gained the right to vote in 1919.
I respect that. I respect that argument. I think the case could be made, for example, that in my particular campaign, I targeted men and women who understood not only the economic issues of affordability, and I think I articulated those issues well across the course of my campaign. I also targeted the redemption story itself, that so many men and women in my congressional district have been through the process, they've been through the system, and that they need hope. In fact, I'm fairly confident that a lot of people who voted for me, who understood that story, may not necessarily vote for someone else. They might just go on back to seeing the electorate as politics as usual, because my message was tailored for them. People who were going to vote for me were going to vote for me. And people who are going to vote for somebody else are going to vote for somebody else. And at the end of the day, with nearly 10 candidates running for public office in my own district, it was like a 20% turnout. 80% of the people in the congressional district did not vote. Whatever side of the argument or the agreement that you may have or whatever, but I don't take people just where they are. I also try to move them, this is from my dad, to where I think they ought to be. I mean, I can look in someone's mouth and tell they need dental. So I talked about expanding the Affordable Care Act to include dental. I can step into a room of 30 people or 300 and quickly count the number of people who are wearing glasses, and I can say to myself, there is a significant representation in this room of people who need vision, including myself.
And me.
I can't see every hearing aid, and you, Atiba. But I can't make the distinction on and clear on because of the size. I don't know how many of us need hearing aids. But the Affordable Care Act should be expanded to include hearing. And so I find people where they are, not just, I want to talk about the ACA. I want to talk about, let me tell you what the ACA doesn't cover that you need if I am your representative for it to be covered so I can expand your reason for voting and participating in the process. It's not just where people are, it's where people ought to be and where they ought to go. And so part of that burden falls on the candidate to be able to move people to a better understanding of what the issues are that they are looking at. It's easy to say affordability. It's more difficult, like Dr. King tried to share with us in Beyond Vietnam, to connect the issues of affordability with petroleum trying to squeeze through the Strait of Hormuz.
I hope we can come back to that after the.
I promise you we will. I'll carry you into the next hour if I have to. These issues matter. He connected the peasants to and what was taking place in Vietnam with bombs to providing financial assistance and resources necessary to fight the war on poverty here at home. This is also the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. More when we come back on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, LA. Tax money is our money. Let's decide how to spend it together. We deserve investments that actually make our neighborhoods safe, like affordable housing, good jobs, fire prevention and protection, and community support programs. How can we make that happen? Join Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and the Movement for Black Lives for the People's Budget Assembly on April 16th. Together, we'll discuss solutions to problems we're facing and make a plan with fellow Angelinos for a city that works for the people. There'll be food, childcare, and great conversation. It's time to demand a budget that puts the people first. Join us on April 16th at 7 p.m. at BLMLA's Center for Black Power and make your voice heard before the Assembly through the People's Budget Survey. Register today at peoplesbudgetla.com. We'll see you there.
We're at Doolin's on Crenshaw. It's a special place where the neighborhood comes together. Got the fried chicken, the catfish, the candied yams, the mac and cheese. It's all delicious. I'm Isaac Bryan. I represent the Crenshaw District in the California State Legislature, and I'm supporting Tom Steyer for governor of California. California is under attack, and we need a fighter who's going to come in on day one and stand up for California values and push back. That person is Tom Steyer. Tom and I have been fighting together for the better part of a decade. Tom is the only candidate supported by Smart Justice because Tom has stood on the front lines of racial justice, economic justice, and true solidarity. Tom is the real deal. He's the only candidate in the race with a comprehensive plan to make the billionaires and the corporations pay their fair share so we can fund things like universal health care and education. He means what he says, and he does what we need. This is a moment when we've got to fight fire with fire, and I believe that fire is Tom Steyer.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions.
Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit Genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 15.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Thought Provoking Thursdays and our conversations with Atiba. Atiba, just before the break, you were going to make a point.
Yeah, in terms of all the things that that we're talking about, it's really like I can't emphasize that I believe that this is our moment. I can't, and I know that people find it really hard to believe that would be what I'm thinking. But in the course of history, whether or not it's this country or South Africa or any country in the world, when faced with a challenge, when faced with danger, there is an opportunity. It's for us now to seize the opportunity. There are 39 House seats that are competitive for the Democrats right now in the House of Representatives, in the United States House of Representatives. If the Democrats can have a message to hold on to their seats and gain 3 seats, they will gain the majority of the House of Representatives. What does that mean?
Atiba, I think that there are 39 seats, as you correctly stated, that are competitive for Democrats, where they have, if they gain 3 of them, can regain control of the Congress of the United States. They are competitive in the general election.
They're competitive in the general election.
Versus the Republican. But in the primary process, where the issues of Iran and Gaza never came up in a single candidate's forum.
And here's the thing, though.
Trump's name was almost never mentioned. The issues were different that the people wanted to talk about. And the outside influence money that comes in and directs a campaign at the end is deeply troublesome. I'm sorry.
So then, but here's where I guess I keep going back to. If you keep losing, and I was watching something this morning with Arsenio Hall, and he was talking about when Bill Clinton came on his show, and he said, finally, I can say that something about something being blown that was different than other stuff, whatever. Anyway, my point in this is the Democrats keep blowing elections. Why? Why do they keep blowing elections? And I believe that a lot of it is that Democrats spend too much time trying to explain stuff as opposed to just making it plain and simple. And the plain and simple message right now is midterms matter. We can win. If we win, we can do more. But if we lose, we can't do anything because we see what happens right now with their hands tied. We've got a TSA issue. We've got people who are paying more in healthcare. I don't hear that anymore. I don't hear anybody talking about the fact that ACA premiums went up. I don't hear people talking as much about Epstein files. When people are talking about what keeps being put in front of them, the media doesn't tell you how to think, but it does tell you what to think about. And people, we have to that's the reason why I don't watch the news, because I don't want to get distracted. You know where my focus is Jesse? My focus is on November the 3rd, 2026. And my energy right now, I've just been trying to be patient. And the reason why I'm trying to be patient is I'm taking this like I'm in a football game and I'm waiting until the fourth quarter. And that's when we're going to pour this on, because all this primary stuff, all these primaries that go on around the country, that's a whole nother issue that I think needs to be addressed at some other point. It's billions of dollars that are being spent. Every day I'm getting 10, 15 text messages from people I don't even know, asking me, please give me $1, give me $5. Oh, Donald Trump is doing this. Stop. I need to know where you're giving me hope, and I need to know what you're doing and what you're going to do to make the country better. And I don't see that message, and I don't hear that. So I feel like it's going to take you, me, and other people to recognize that we can't wait for someone to have a message. We have to push the message. And the message right now is that everything is way too expensive, and I'm not getting paid enough to pay for it.
I know we're going to get to your word of hope in just a moment. I just want to say this, that almost 20 states have now moved their primary processes till August. Us versus the Republicans in about 20 states won't even begin until August. August, September, October, November. That's when we will be discussing those issues.
But you know what's funny?
But I'm going to give you a word of hope now. But from now till August, there are going to be multiple Democrats within congressional districts fighting amongst themselves, which is a fair process. They will make determinations over eggs, grits, chitlins, ham hocks, and everything else. And whoever emerges from that contest will be our standard bearer versus the Republican. What's happening in the Democratic primary process is there are outside forces determining how we should behave in the general. And that, Atiba, I found deeply troubling.
And
Atiba,
what you also said earlier about transactional. As a kid, one of the things that used to drive me crazy about Democrats was to watch white folk come up into a black church on Sunday before Election Day and ask for our votes. And we gave it. And then afterwards, we got upset because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. Part of that is that we have to be engaged in this whole process. That's where voter education comes in. It's not just that you get registered. It's not just that you show up and vote. And in terms of the primary thing, I'm getting calls even from friends who are asking me for money. And I've made a decision this year, Jesse. I made a decision and I'm sharing it. I'm not giving money to anybody this election cycle. I need to see how hard people are willing to work to build grassroots organizations that will win elections, because we have to feel the pain. It's a struggle. And I know people are saying, oh, well, you got to pay for this, you got to pay for that. Listen, people are hurting. And then people are taking money out of hardworking people's pockets and then saying, I'm going to carry the water for you. And then they lose. And in this whole primary process, personally, I think there are a lot of people who are polling 2, 5, 10%. Get out the race. You can't win. All you're doing is taking money from hardworking people. And what you're saying in terms of this negotiation, in terms of this conversation, this year, 2026, in my opinion, is not the year to be blowing all this stuff. We have to figure out how to come together and fight, and how we're going to take back, as Joe Biden said, the soul of America, because that's really at stake here. And if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, there's going to be a whole lot more loss of hope, Jesse, in terms of the political process. We have to grow up. And I think that it has to be us in our community that really stands up and says, enough is enough.
A lot of great points, Atiba. Thank you for being on the show today. So grateful.
Thank you, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to our Conversations with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, of course, Dr. Johnny Mack will be joining us in the World House. But I do want to thank Atiba for the insight that he's brought to this very important conversation about the midterms. Remember, today, tomorrow, April 4th, we will be commemorating the 57th date of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and just no one has contributed greater to the hopes and inspirations of our people by helping bring us into the voting process with the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Selma to Montgomery campaign laid the foundation for that. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Body cam footage shows the moment Tiger Woods was arrested after a crash in Florida last week.
So at this time, you're under arrest for DUI. Yes, sir.
Video shows him struggling through sobriety tests, with deputies later finding painkillers in his pocket. Woods also told officers he was looking at his phone just before the rollover crash. President Trump has removed Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying she's leaving for a job in the private sector. Trump praised Bondi's work, but the move comes as she faced criticism over her handling of the Epstein files. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will now step in as acting Attorney General. And Black rapper Pooh Shiesty and his father have both been arrested in separate incidents. Reports say Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams Jr., was taken into custody in Dallas, Texas, while his father was arrested in Memphis, Tennessee, following an FBI raid tied to a federal case. Authorities have not yet announced charges. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Did you know April is National Car Care Month? Head to your local Big O Tires for great deals like this. Now, get a synthetic oil change starting at only $39.99, including tire rotation. Plus, get a free multi-point vehicle inspection, too. Find your nearest Big O at BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The behavior issues for Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua have become public knowledge at a horrible time for the 3-year veteran. Nacua is eligible for a contract extension that could have made him one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. The Rams have put those contract talks on hold. Nacua is entering a rehab facility to treat his behavior issues. He led the NFL last season with 129 catches and was second in receiving yards with 1,715. He also had 10 touchdown catches. The Rams were prepared to give Nacua an extension before the 2026 season that might have paid him between $35 and $40 million a year. Nacua is making $5.7 million in the final year of his contract. The Lakers are at Oklahoma City tonight. The Clippers are at home against San Antonio. It's HBCU night at the Intuit Dome. The Clippers are also considering a tribute to Marvin Gaye. Today would have been Marvin's 87th birthday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect Black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, Black voices, Black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up!
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Provoking Thursdays. And on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, we enter the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack on this, what will be tomorrow, the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. On August 28th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us tragically by an assassin's bullet. In 1963, in August of that year, he delivered his I Have a Dream speech in the context of sanitation workers, in the context of a march for jobs with justice, led by A. Philip Randolph and the Pullman Porters. And for really 57 years since his passing, some of us have lived in a dream state. That's what I kind of heard Atiba in our last hour talking about. But there's also been 57 years of a reality check. Not just I have a dream, but there's a reality check here that with all of the progress that we made, it can be wiped out so quickly. I'm particularly honored that Johnny Mack, who is a social entrepreneur and scholar practitioner with expertise in subject areas of peace, conflict, and social change movements, is our very special guest. He is an expert on the life and the logic of Martin Luther King Jr. and the U.S. Civil Rights Movement, and I'm honored that he's joining us on our program. Hey, Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, Jesse, thanks for having me always. Appreciate it.
I'm glad you're here. Johnny, your initial thoughts about the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, we need the voice and the work, the thoughts, the vision of King 57 years after his assassination, more than we've ever needed. That's the first thought that comes to my mind. You would imagine that, as you've noted, we're losing precious ground that we gained as a result of his work and those who worked with him and beside him 65 years ago. Even those gains, Jesse, even those gains were not far enough. So how is it that we find ourselves even making more steps backward than steps forward?
Johnny, I absolutely, I agree with that. I am, the gravity of what Dr. King had to say and what he had to share with us still resonates in our consciousness, in our hearts, in our minds, in our body politic. And I'm thinking also about the conflict that is taking place in the world and its consequences. I was reading something earlier today about the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz and the disruption that the Houthis are talking about creating, I guess, in the Mediterranean Sea. And Donald Trump put up a tweet today that said, and because our ships are now going around South Africa and Cape Town, that we're going to look really closely at how the South Africans are benefiting from what is taking place. And we're going to come to them with paying essentially the United States, America first, with whatever she's entitled to, because Donald Trump has disrupted global trade in the Straits. They may have to take a long way around the Horn of Africa and ultimately around South Africa before they can come to the United States. And now Donald Trump wants to collect whatever tolls and tariffs from these countries who are not responsible for what he's doing literally thousands of miles north of where they are.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Johnny, it's so sad. It's so tragic that it's almost laughable.
Yeah. But it's not laughable, is it?
No, it's not. It's very serious.
It seems as though rather than working toward peace and creating a just world environment, there seems to be an indefatigable effort to be as contentious and cantankerous as one can possibly be in global leadership. It's just hard to imagine what is the thinking behind this current leadership in the U.S., Jesse. To pick a fight with anybody and everybody just makes no sense. It's violent, and it's violent in almost every sense of the word. It was something that Martin King well understood, that violence manifests in many different ways, culturally, structurally, institutionally, as well as direct physical, personal violence. And, that's what we're experiencing today.
I think that's right. I mean, violence in terms of gunboat diplomacy, in the police, violence in terms of sharing rockets, boxing. There's a certain level of violence in the sport. There's violence in many of our competitive sports. So the ways in which and the forms in which violence are acceptable and unacceptable are factors in King's thinking, because I think he saw violence as a demon, as a spirit that presented itself with many, many different names, many different names. And it comes to us in our interpersonal relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our communities, with our neighbors. It's not just about marching nonviolently. It's about thinking about the ways in which the spirit itself is impacted by the various forms of violence. We don't call them violence. We just call it mixed martial arts. There's nothing about that thing. There's nothing about bare knuckle fighting. That's not violent. Now, of course, there'll be a victor, but our spirits become adjusting and acceptable to it. And that becomes part of the problem when we normalize it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're in the World House with Johnny Mack. More on KBLA.
Only on KBLA Talk 1580. It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Carpal tunnel syndrome, heart failure that doesn't improve with common medicines. These are some signs and symptoms associated with ATTR-CM, or the cardiomyopathy of ATTR amyloidosis, a serious heart condition with symptoms that get worse over time. Amvuttra, vutrisiran, is a prescription medicine given by a healthcare provider that treats ATTR-CM in adults to reduce heart-related death, hospital stays, and urgent visits. In a clinical study, Amvuttra was proven to help people live longer and have fewer heart-related hospital stays and urgent visits over 3 years compared to placebo. Amvuttra lowers the amount of vitamin A in your blood, which can affect vision. Other side effects include pain in the arms or legs, pain in the joints, and shortness of breath. These are not all the possible side effects of Amvuttra. For prescribing information, call 1-833-256-2748 or learn more at amvuttra.com. Ask your doctor about Amvuttra for ATTR-CM.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk.
Listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
We're in the World House with Johnny Mack. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. Good to be here.
Johnny, this within the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have the great privilege of sitting on a panel with you that you will be moderating at the National Action Network. You've titled the panel, The Global Challenge of Race and Inequality in Today's Movement Towards a New World Order. Johnny, can we use this segment for you to lay out the thesis of what we want to cover and why it's so important and critical at this hour?
Well, yes, Jesse. Jesse, thanks for bringing that to our conversation. It is, it's a real challenge for particularly African Americans and people of African descent globally, that we are living in an emerging new world order that has taken hold of virtually every nation state and determines the life chances of what I like to call global citizens throughout the world. And again, focusing particularly on the African diaspora, the question is, what can we do about it? What must we do about it? Can people of African descent, should people of African descent be engaged in the global dialogue of this new world order, and how does that take place? So I'm grateful that Reverend Al Sharpton has given us a chance to organize a panel on this specific subject. As you know, I work very closely with Rev internationally, and as he and I discuss the challenges that confront the African diaspora and people on the African continent, I think his interest is to bring this topic front and center on the global stage, particularly among our people. And so, thematically, we ourselves, people of African descent, have to have this conversation. If we're going to make it a global discussion, it has to begin with us.
Johnny, I feel like in this moment, there's a dark cloud hovering over our world. The threats from the United States, the unilateral activity both in Venezuela and the United States, the talk of unilateral activity in Cuba, the unkind comments of the President of the United States today towards the President and to the people of South Africa, who have nothing to do with the bombing campaign of the Israelis and the Americans in Iran, or are responsible for what took place tragically in the Gaza on October 7th. It feels as if the world is moving into a dark place of slavishness, where we all know now that there is a power in the world that has the power to impose its will on any nation in the world just about any time that it wants to. And we find ourselves in the belly, the Jonah, if you will, the belly of that system. And it's a scary time, because while we argue for our own liberation domestically, at the same time, we find ourselves ironically and paradoxically in the exact same place as mastering over other people around the world for their resources and determining their fates, and then holding a gun at their head in order to get it done. Johnny, am I wrong in that interpretation?
Well, I wouldn't argue you're wrong. I would expand on it a bit, Jesse.
Please.
Because we do have, of course, a single world power that dominates in violence. That was not quite true at King's time, though King, as I know you know, Jesse, said the greatest purveyor of violence in the mid-20th century. And he's speaking in the early 60s. the greatest pervert, or I guess late 60s, the greatest purveyor of violence was his own country, the United States of America. And certainly after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dismantling of the USSR, the United States was indisputably the dominant and preeminent force on the global stage. And in many respects, in most respects, Jesse, remains so today. But the way I would just modify a bit how we're thinking about this, and it's such an important conversation, is asymmetric warfare that's taking place today. I'm reminded of a scholar by the name of Ian Morris of Stanford University, who wrote a couple of books on war and its benefits to the world. I read one commentary recently on that book, those books, which were, I think, 2010 and 2014, Morris's books, that suggested, then this was about a decade ago, that power that we saw in what Morris calls the 500-year war on the world. That is the Western world's war on the rest of the world to organize it in a social framework that benefits the Western world. But today, with today's technologies, there's a new world order in that regard, where asymmetric warfare, that is, not fighting with the same tools and the same strengths, the same powers, but leveraging one's resources, what is available to one, becomes very important. And so we see in the case of Ukraine and Russia, for example, a asymmetric war where Ukraine is holding its own. That war was supposed to last a few weeks, and now we're in the fourth year of that war. Iran is the same way. That war was to last a couple of weeks, maybe 4 weeks. There's no end in sight in the Iranian war. Why? Because of the technologies that are available to Ukraine and Iran and how they fight what has been conventional wars. They're very unconventional today. So war is changing like everything else. And how we respond to that is really important.
I found that it's amazing that the president of the United States last night in his speech, by the way, if you believe what Donald Trump had to say last night, you really are an April Fool. I mean, if you believe that America is not on the retreat in this part of the world, you're kidding yourself. America is on the retreat. And that's why he wants out of there. So this control over the media, the attack on the media domestically, the screening, if you will, of stories in the global press, removing the press from the Pentagon, who has lots of questions of Mr. Hegseth, and singling out certain generals to tell a specific narrative about the awesomeness of America is misinterpreting the reality of what's taking place on the ground. That includes, but not limited to, the outreach of Iran to its neighbors and what they are doing to disrupt the infrastructure of liquid natural gas, LNG, liquid natural gas, LNG, and petroleum products, and how that's going to be passed on to the American people. And it will come back in the form of making life in our own country less affordable, while Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth continue along the lines of their bravado. Dr. Mick.
So narrative, a word you used, is so important here. And how we rely on narratives. Narratives shape how we think, of course, and how much of a given narrative we adopt and internalize and make part of our own lived experience is important. And so, as you said, what we heard last night is an attempt to shape a narrative that benefits, the current administration's interests, covers its mistakes, and if I can use this word, obfuscates what's really going on. So, you know, we started a war. I'm not sure who we are when I say use that term. I don't think the American people themselves started this war, but we have to take ownership of the war. But this war was started, as everyone knows by now, without any planning whatsoever. And now we're in the middle of it and have no idea, it seems, how to end it. Meanwhile, lives are being torn apart, not only in terms of the physical loss of life, which is, of course, really tragic, but then the impact. I just filled up my truck. I drive a truck, Jesse, yesterday. $100, literally $100.
That all you pay, Johnny?
$100. Oh, well, it's my part of the country now. That cost of living where I am in Atlanta is a bit different from where you are in Chicago, Jesse. But you know, I don't carry $100 around every week to fill up my truck. But you know, I can afford to do that, Jesse. Yeah. But how many of us cannot? I'm not sure how long I can afford to do it, but I could. At least I was able to buy $100 worth of gas yesterday.
You know, I think it's these issues aren't going anywhere, and I think when we talked earlier in some of our previous episodes about the revolution of values that Dr. King is talking about in Beyond Vietnam, he's trying to get us to see that the war on poverty at home, the war on affordability at home, is the resources that we need to provide dental, to provide hearing, to provide vision for the American people, is now spent to the tune of $1 billion a day in Iran. And he, of course, was making the case that the initial war on poverty that the government had committed itself to coming out of the civil rights movement and towards the end of his life and during that period in the 60s, it became increasingly clear that Congress was no longer using those resources domestically. They were dropping them on peasants in Vietnam. Dr. wanted us to see at the hour of his death, and that's what we're discussing on April 4th, the 50th anniversary of his death, the parallels and the relationship between domestic spending on priorities that would create greater domestic tranquility for all of us and what was taking place in Vietnam, or in the case now of Iran. I don't think, quite frankly, that Donald Trump's administration can survive that argument, because I think the American people, because you paid $100 for a gallon of gas, are experiencing it every single day. Johnny Mac did not make $100 more this week from his job, but still has to pay even more money for gas. And that's coming at the expense of his eggs. It's coming at the expense of his bacon. It's coming at the expense of his rent or his mortgage or the tuition that he has to pay for his children.
Yeah. And so this value set that drives the decisions that the administration is making is the point. What are those values, that legitimize, the kind of war that's playing out not only in Iran and the Middle East, but it's playing out in Ukraine and in Gaza and so many other places around the globe. And those values tend to focus on the self-interest of the few at the expense of the many.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're talking in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mac. But just before we go to the break, I do want to say this. Pam Bondi was fired today by Donald John Trump. She's out. And now looking at a new attorney general, if you're driving on the 110 or on the 5, you should know that the nation at this moment has an acting attorney general because Donald Trump is quite upset about the way Pam Bondi has handled the Epstein files. The Epstein story is not going anywhere, even in the midst of the enormous distraction, a war that Donald Trump has created. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says the city is investing $300 million in affordable housing across Chicago.
With this major investment in Chicago, one that will truly bring stability.
The funding will support 15 developments expected to create more than 1,200 units, with projects planned for the south and west sides and set to begin within the next 18 months. As Artemis 2 orbits Earth on its way around the moon, it's being piloted by Southern California native Victor Glover. The mission marks the first human trip around the moon in over 50 years, and Glover is set to become the first Black astronaut to take part in a lunar mission. And rapper Pooh Shiesty has been arrested in connection to an alleged armed robbery and kidnapping fellow rapper Gucci Mane at a Dallas music studio. Federal officials say he and several others are accused of holding victims at gunpoint and forcing one to sign a contract release. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Did you know April is National Car Care Month? Head to your local Big O Tires for great deals like this. Now, get a synthetic oil change starting at only $39.99, including tire rotation. Plus, get a free multi-point vehicle inspection, too. Find your nearest Big O at BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The behavior issues for Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua have become public knowledge at a horrible time for the 3-year veteran. Nacua is eligible for a contract extension that could have made him one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. The Rams have put those contract talks on hold. Nacua is entering a rehab facility to treat his behavior issues. He led the NFL last season with 129 catches and was second in receiving yards with 1,715. He also had 10 touchdown catches. The Rams were prepared to give Nacua an extension before the 2026 season that might have paid him between $35 and $40 million a year. Nacua is making $5.7 million in the final year of his contract. The Lakers are at Oklahoma City tonight. The Clippers are at home against San Antonio. It's HBCU night at the Intuit Dome. The Clippers are also considering a tribute to Marvin Gaye. Today would have been Marvin's 87th birthday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
What if your rooftop could earn you money every year? With LADWP's Solar Rooftops program, you can get solar panels installed and maintained on your home at no cost and earn up to $900 a year. That's up to $18,000 over 20 years. There are no upfront costs, no credit checks, and no annual fees. Plus, you'll help power Los Angeles with clean local solar energy and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Make your rooftop work for you. Apply today at ladwp.com/solar rooftops.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
An official message from Medicare. Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money. Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If a Lenovo computer for your business is on your holiday list, don't shop around. Just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com. It's your last chance to get exclusive deals on the PCs you want for your business, like the ThinkPad X9 14 Aura Edition and Yoga 7i 2-in-1. So avoid all that shopping chaos and price comparing, and just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com, where PCs are up to 35% off. That's Lenovo.com.
Lenovo.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're in the World House with Johnny Mac. Johnny Mac, welcome forward to the show. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in the World House.
Can you hear me, Jesse?
I sure can. Can you hear me, Johnny?
I can. It's good to be here.
You know, I'm thinking about the firing of Pam Bondi today by Donald Trump. I've known many attorney generals, from Janet Reno under the Clinton administration when I was first sworn in as a member of Congress, all the way to Eric Holder. And of course, I did not know him personally, but I still think that Merrick Garland was one of the worst attorney generals in the history of the United States, who did not rise to the occasion of pursuing justice in a timely manner upon his entry into the office. I think he was too much a traditionalist in Washington to take on the brave feat of saving democracy. Probably could have been an American hero, but he will go down in history for something far less than that. And I'm thinking that Dr. King also enjoyed relationships with Bobby Kennedy, albeit tumultuous. But the civil rights community, I've seen Reverend Sharpton and others, and the civil rights community engage attorney generals over the issues at the Department of Education, over Health and Human Services, over the states themselves, compliance with the Voting Rights Act. And it seems to me that the civil rights community today does not have the same relationship either with Merrick Garland, the Democrat, nor did they have the same relationship with Pam Bondi that the civil rights community enjoyed in the past with attorney generals, starting, I might add, with Martin Luther King Jr., who engaged the attorney generals of the United States as well as the presidents of the United States, even drawing the ire of J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI. Johnny?
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, Jesse, isn't it? Isn't there? So times do change. Attitudes change. And we just talked in the last segment about narratives, which also change and change our thinking, change our approach to various issues, including our struggle for human and civil rights. We live in a very different world in so many respects with respect to that narrative. Values themselves change. I think there are some fundamental principles. The scholars call them eternal verities, eternal truths that I think never change. And it was interesting in listening to the debate on birthright citizenship held by the Supreme Court. It was interesting that the Chief Justice, among other things, asked or spoke to the integrity of the Constitution. And while times change and circumstances change, as the administration argued, the Chief Justice said, yeah, but the Constitution hasn't changed. And I relate that to the fundamental values. And I'm coming around to your point about the civil rights movement and civil rights organizations. I think that while the fundamental truths, the fundamental verities, the fundamental values that we hold may not change, circumstances change. And therefore, Jesse, to bring it home, we must respond to those changes, never losing sight of, never abandoning the anchor of those fundamental truths, those fundamental values, and how we apply those values and commit ourselves to them. It's really what matters, it seems to me. And I think it's what mattered to King as we celebrate as we commemorate his assassination tomorrow. The question is, how are civil rights organizations positioning themselves and engaging the various agencies and processes that the administration is using to roll back the rights that we've gained, in the movement. So times are very different. The challenge is, how do we and those organizations, those civil rights organizations, how do we respond? How do we engage? How do we rethink what must be done today that could not have been done yesterday? And how do we, I'm sorry, please.
I'm thinking in this moment, Johnny, that in the Kennedy administration, he had his own disposition about how the intelligence community, for example, was not communicating with him effectively about what they were doing. And he ran a file, if you will, of a rail of government that has been secret. We've seen Donald Trump in 2 administrations now do everything that he can to dismantle the intelligence community and ignore even their best recommendations for how to handle many of these global matters. In fact, what was done by the United States covertly is now so overt that we almost don't need the intelligence communities because he's going to do it anyway. He has something called a gut instinct. But we worked when the government was on our side with attorney generals, including, I remember meeting with William Bradford Reynolds during the Reagan administration and taking him to the South with Reverend Jackson. I was in tow for the Southern Crusade when we were trying to show him counties where not only people were still sharecropping, but where they were being made to register to vote twice just to vote once. And William Bradford Reynolds suspended elections in Mississippi as a result of that behavior. We had the government on our side, even during the Reagan administration, when we could show them the evidence that our people were being treated differently. The government was on our side. What has definitely changed is the government is no longer on our side. And it's hard to imagine that any of the Democratic nominees, short of maybe Wes Moore or maybe Don Lemon, if he decides to get in the contest, have any interest in putting the government back on our side should they become president of the United States. I am concerned that we are looking at new norms here, Johnny, new norms where our organizations will not have access to an attorney general, a civil rights division of the Justice Department that has been gutted, but within each of these federal agencies is also a civil rights division that has been gutted for the handicapped, for African Americans, for women, and for others. In other words, Johnny, I think the past is prologue. I think we're going backwards to go forward in the next administration just because of the damage that has been done. I'm Jesse Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Johnny Mack and his word of hope.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. These are hard times for housing in America. Too many in our community face barriers to safe housing, behavioral health care, and affirming spaces for healing, particularly those impacted by poverty and stigma or incarceration. Rooted in South LA, Ahmad supports impacted communities through housing, wellness, and leadership development. Ahmad provides culturally responsive, peer-led support from transitional housing and mental health services to leadership development and youth empowerment. They offer safe, affirming houses for youth, transgender women, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Therapy and peer support with a focus on healing trauma in Black communities. HIV prevention and care, free testing, education, and wraparound services for whole person wellness. Standing in the gap with health, housing, and hope. Reach out to Ahmad Institute at 323-569-1610. That's 323-569-1610. Or visit amaad.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Imagine every pregnant person in LA County having the support they deserve. A doula on every block. Doulas provide emotional, physical, and informational support during pregnancy, through labor, and beyond. Medi-Cal now covers doula care. That means you can get the support you need or train to support families in your community. The LA County Medi-Cal Doula Hub is here to help. Learn more and get started today at ladoulahub.com.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief. And boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the final segment of Thought-Provoking Thursdays and the Johnny Mack Show, the World House on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Johnny, welcome forward to the show.
Thanks, Jesse.
Johnny, I do want to pick up on this because of our limited time, and obviously leave you time to bring up and respond to anything that you'd like to respond to, and a word of hope. Johnny, listen, I think civil rights organizations treat attorney generals under Democratic presidents different than we treat Republican attorney generals. I mean, we cozy up to them like, oh, I'm having a meeting with Eric Holder, or I'm having a meeting with Janet Reno, right? I'm not even sure the civil rights community even ever met with Merrick Garland, because Joe Biden's our guy and Kamala was our vice president. But in the 60s, Martin Luther King Jr. held Bobby Kennedy accountable as Attorney General and held the administration of both Kennedy and Johnson accountable to civil rights. These were finger-pointing meetings. They were not love-ins and love fests. And for the right wing, for what Trump has been able to accomplish in the first year of his administration, both Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are the best the nation's ever seen in the direction that they're going. But for us, when it came to questions of justice, like locking this president up and holding people accountable, Merrick Garland, under our guy, Joe Biden, didn't lift a finger or barely lifted a finger other than the obvious, the 1,500 indictments secured because these people ran through the Capitol in that previous election, the election deniers for which Donald Trump ultimately pardoned. The civil rights organizations are in bed with Democratic lure, Democratic presidents, and they don't hold Democrats accountable like Martin Luther King Jr. held Kennedy and Johnson accountable, forcing the hand of the Democrats to do right by the people who were voting for them. Please convince me or try to convince me that I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm the person to try to convince you of right or wrong on that issue at all, Jesse. You're meddling now. But Jesse, it is true, I believe, that those who say, after the the civil rights movement and King's assassination, the movement changed. I didn't say that as elegantly as I should have, but the movement changed significantly after King's assassination. Whether or not that's tied directly to his assassination or for other reasons or a combination, but the movement splintered in many different ways. Many of its leaders were absorbed in the social structure, whether that was the private sector, they were absorbed. We can name names there, but maybe this is not the place to do that. They were absorbed in the political structure. And I think that absorption had a significant effect on how we responded as organizations and groups to the challenges that we faced in the movement. And I think that remains today. We have become part of the fabric of the structure itself. And that fabric is a torn fabric. It's a fabric of right and left. And so if you identify with the right, you've been absorbed in that narrative, as we talked about earlier today. And if you are part of the left, you've been absorbed in that. But as you point out, Jesse, I agree that many, and particularly King, identified with issues, not with organizations. He identified with people who struggled day in and day out to make ends meet and to make sense of the difficult challenges that life presents. That was the beacon that King followed. And it's what drove his associations with others, his affiliations with others, and to call sin by its name, if I can use that term. Am I right? So, Jesse, I wouldn't try to dissuade you from the point of view that perhaps we are too close to organizations and not close enough to the people and the challenges that they confront, the issues they confront day in and day out.
I know that we're coming up on your word of hope, Johnny. And very quickly, Johnny, how can we support your organization?
www.theworldhouseproject.org. Again, www.theworldhouseproject.org.
My father
about our work and make a donation.
My father's mentor, Martin Luther King Jr., held attorney generals and Democratic presidents of the United States, Kennedy and Johnson, accountable. My father understood the need to hold presidents, regardless of their political parties, accountable. Because if we let attorney generals off the hook, we lose DEI. We lose enforcement at the federal level. He held them accountable, not always on the news, not always seen. He would invite them to their conferences. Let the record show those who came to the conferences when invited, and the record show those who did not come to the conferences, even though they were invited. That's the record. Let the record show. The presidents who invited my father to the White House, Democrat and Republican, and that's public record, and the presidents who did not invite him one time to the White House, Democrat and Republican. Those suggests that Jesse Jackson had work with Democrats and Republicans to hold them accountable, and it was not always appreciated. I saw it myself, and no one's going to be able to tell me differently. Johnny, a word of hope.
Well, a word of hope.
Minute, Johnny, a little less minutes. It's going to be a quick word of hope.
A word of hope is to keep hope alive in the spirit of your dad and the incredible work and example that he gave us.
Thank you, Johnny. There is an eternal vigilance to our struggle, my brothers and sisters, and it is a labor of love for those who've been called to do it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're in the World House with Johnny Mack. Until tomorrow, God bless you.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Pate.